Hey there, and welcome back to the Complicated Kids podcast. I'm your host, Gabriele Nicolet. I am a toddler whisperer, a parent coach, and a speech therapist. And today I have Zara Waldman DeLuca with me. Zara, welcome.
Hi.
We are going to talk all about what family members know. And before we do that, introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to share with you about family members and family relationships in the context of disability. My full-time gig is that I'm a professor at Southern Connecticut State University in New Haven, Connecticut. I am a speech therapist by trade. But maybe my most important title is that I'm a sib, and that's an affectionate name for a sibling of somebody with a disability. So I am one of five children. I'm the oldest, if you couldn't tell from my nervousness level. I'll mellow out, I promise. But I'm the oldest of five children, and my youngest sister has a disability.
Okay. And so you come into the work via a personal experience, which I think is true of lots of helpers in the professions. Um, and so, okay, so let's get into it. What is it? Why are we talking about what family members know? We talk a lot about, particularly on the show, but also in social media, in the world writ large, about disability and what we need to know about disability and what we need to know about people with disabilities. So, tell us your angle here.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting coming into the work as a sib and becoming a helper in a helping profession because of being a sibling. It gives me a unique perspective. And I think, just as you said, we talk a lot about the ways that we can describe disability, or we can have folks who have disabilities describe it to us, which is really important. But the other important part of the relationship is the ways that we create inclusivity and access. And a lot of the times, family members are on the front line of that. And as a speech therapist, I did a lot of work in birth to three. That's predominantly the group that I work with is birth to three and preschool aged kiddos. So I spend a lot of times in families' homes. And while I might see a parent succeeding in getting access and inclusion for their child, they've got a different trajectory, a different route to approaching that, whereas their sibling is usually approaching it from a companionship angle, from an equal angle. And that's how I always saw it too. I don't think I think I always knew there was something different about my sister, but I did not think that that changed how she participated in my family or played or participated with me and the other siblings that I had. And I think that that's a really different perspective, whereas I find many parents want to be an equalizer amongst the children in the house, and that's not always the role that we see sibs playing. And I think that's where they get a true level of access, allowing their siblings the type of independence, the type of achievement that we are really talking about when we're talking about accessibility and inclusion.
This gets really interesting really fast for me. Okay, give us an example of what you're talking about from this sibling companionship angle, and which ends up kind of being an equalizer. So explain what you mean by this. Like,
Oh boy, we're
give us
right
an
into the
example.
podcast, and now you want me to throw my mom and dad under the bus. Nice. Really nice. No, but not at all meaning it in that way. But an example. My siblings and I might be fighting over something. My sister wears cochlear implants to access sound. She also signs to some extent. I sign as well. So her and I will talk to each other, and maybe there'll be a miscommunication with another sibling who enters the fracas. My mom or dad might step into that. And they may, instead of letting us solve it amongst ourselves and all the communication styles and ways that we make each other understood, and employing all those good strategies to reach a resolution amongst ourselves, a parent, my mom or dad, may intervene and say, speak slower, or just let her have the thing first, or just let her do this thing first, or let her get her words out first. When that's not always how family relationships work, especially competitive, intense sibling relationships work too. And I think also parents are not always keen to all of the ways in which power struggles change and shift amongst many siblings in a house. So a parent might step in and do that. That then gives a certain, I think, special treatment's not the right word, but in a sense, it doesn't allow my sister to advocate for herself. And in that role of saying, you need to slow down and speak to me in this way, or I can only have one person talking at a time, or your face is in a shadow and I can't see it. So instead of letting her advocate for herself, my parent ends up advocating and then ends up solving the sibling to sibling disagreement by doing the advocacy piece and doing the self advocacy that we hope that my sister will accomplish. And we hope that also her peers, AKA her siblings, will also accomplish for her too in building a more just and inclusive world. So when we have a parent come in and solve it, that doesn't necessarily teach the lesson of accessibility and inclusion that we want the next generation to inherit.
Ooh, this is hitting me so hard right now because I run groups for parents who are raising neurodivergent, mostly children, but kids who have needs. And one of the things that often comes up is sibling stuff. And I just want people to like pause and reflect on it. I think what can happen is when we have a child, for lack of a better term, with a disability or special needs in the family, it seems like that should supersede everything. And what I hear you saying is actually the dynamics can be, they're not going to look the same, but the dynamics are still there. There is a base of what happens between siblings in a family, between family members, that should, maybe not, but like can be allowed to ride, whereby people are learning some valuable lessons.
Oh, I want to say should. I want to say should. I Our siblings are our longest lasting relationships on earth. While we are here for the brief time that we are, our siblings know us the best. And our siblings will be there long after our spouses may depart from us, our parents will depart from us. It's our siblings that will really be there. And when we watch siblings fight, and I know this is a common complaint and theme amongst parents of fighting and fighting and all of the fracas that occurs with siblings, but that's all us trialing out different types of social interactions, trying on different personalities, trying on different ways to resolve things, trying on ways to advocate for ourselves, to make ourselves understood. And they're our closest peers. They're usually pretty close to us in age. And it gives us that blank space to try out. My brother sent me a meme the other day that just said siblings are like the way that we can test how far we can push someone until they want to kill us. But that's truly it, right? Don't you have to learn that at home before you go out in the world and try it out on somebody else? I think about all of the times my wonderful partner has been spared me getting anxious about something or haranguing him to do something just because I have done it with my siblings and seen how far I can push them before they are frustrated or upset with me.
This
And I
is a,
think
yeah.
that's not beyond the child with disability either, because out of that struggle, out of that trial and error that we do with our siblings, comes our sibling relationships, comes those hard won intimate moments with our siblings. And don't want to deprive disabled children of that either. And when parents intervene, sometimes that happens. So I think a lot of the times we want to try to let those really natural interactions just ride, as you said.
It's a model of family life that is very resilient. The thing you're describing right here is a resilient family. And as you say, the way you get to resilience is by overcoming obstacles. You cannot be resilient if you never have an obstacle. And so that tension, that conflict, and within reason, we're keeping people physically safe. Hopefully, within some bounds of emotional safety as well, psychological safety. But within that system, now we've got to stress test it a little bit. And I think you're right. Those relationships, because they are family relationships, are a proving ground for stress testing some stuff.
Well, and I think too, you want to build a sort of resilience and reliance upon your fellow your fellow family
Mm,
member.
mm.
You want that disabled child to think, here's a person who I can turn to when I'm not sure how to do something, I'm not sure how to advocate for myself, or I'm not or even just the run of the mill. I don't know if this top looks good with these pants. That's also, we want them to learn that too. This is a person who I can trust and who I can come to, and vice versa. We want typically developing sibs in that family structure to also see the strengths and the challenges that their sibling faces so that they can also go to them for that same level of support and help. And I liked what you said about too making sort of a psychological, emotional safety net as well. And I think that's where the big piece of my work now is going. And that is in supporting siblings and making sure that siblings get a space to speak their feelings, their thoughts, their struggles, their challenges as well, so that they can become emotionally resilient in their maybe challenging life or relationship with their sibling, or maybe rejoice in the joys of having a sibling who is different from other people. And I think also, to make that an emotionally safe space for everybody in the family, it means that we need to support siblings just as much as we support parents of kids with disabilities too.
Yeah, and so your research, and you have a program, which I'd love for you to describe, is focused very much on the siblings. I really want you to give like an example from your work of like things that siblings know about their disabled siblings that most people don't know. You've got some really good nuggets. I heard you speak at a conference recently, and you've got these amazing crystallizing nuggets. Will you tell about the hospital bed?
Yes, I would love to. So I'll start at the beginning, which is that I am a certified facilitator by the Sibling Support Project based in Washington, the state, and I run a SIB shop called the Southern Connecticut SIB Shop. I also support, and that is for children ages 5 to 13 to come once a month, participate in some fun activities and sort of a little vent session and build strategies together about living and being with our disabled siblings and family members. And I also do this for adults as well in a group called the CT SIBs that works with adult caregivers and siblings of people with disabilities. And that goes through the lifespan, thinking about how we age with our siblings as well. And I'm really lucky in that adult space to also work alongside Massachusetts siblings, and Rhode Island as well. And I know that things are in the works to get a bigger New England collaborative going so that we can all pool our knowledge as SIBs. And within those two groups, I also do some research in how siblings process their experience, see their experience, and are there ways that we as helpers in helping professions, whether that means speech therapists, occupational therapists, pediatricians, psychologists, are there ways that we can start to ask better questions of the families that we work with so that we can find out how they're strategizing to solve issues? I think a big hurdle that we are trying to overcome in this fight against ableism is really handing over that disability experience and learning about it from the people who are experiencing it directly. And that means asking our clients about how their challenges manifest and how we can support them in those moments. And it also means asking family members how they are helping overcome those challenges as well. Um, and so I'll tell this story that you really love. Just wrapped up a photo voice study with a group of 7 to 10-year-old siblings. And this is a study where they take pictures and then they talk about the pictures that they took, the photos that they took. And I had a kiddo come in with a picture of the space underneath his sib's hospital bed. And when I asked him why he took a picture of that, he told me that his sib doesn't talk, but if he sticks his hand underneath this little space in the hospital bed up to the other side, his sib can give him a high five and it makes her laugh. And I thought, oh my goodness, years of being a speech therapist, decade of being a speech therapist. And there's that moment where these sibs connected. They found a way to communicate. And when I reflected on my life too, my life was full of those moments also, of where my sister wasn't wearing her implants and she was tired or she was postictal, and we found a different way. We found another way to describe, to talk to each other, to see what we were both looking at, to find a communal ground to communicate. And I think all families are doing that, and maybe our field has not been curious enough to ask them lately. or
I have
until
some choice words about our field in that regard, but that I will leave for another show. But
yeah, me too, me too.
yeah, but that moment, I mean, I really almost, I could cry about these moments of connection, right? And I think as brief as they are, as infrequent as they might be, calling attention to those moments of connection, of success, of innovation, right, is good for everybody. It's good for the sib. It's certainly good for the child with the disability. And it's also good for the parents. Like highlighting, noticing, we know that this is good for brains, right? Our brains have a negativity bias. They're going to see gloom and doom unless we choose to counteract. And this is a way, these like, again, moments are ways to counteract that and say, actually, no, this life is a beautiful thing. These moments are beautiful. And really highlighting that to just shining a spotlight on that is important.
Yeah. And I mean, I touched on this too in the presentation, and I say it a lot, which is that growing up in families of disability, there are really unique challenges and there are really unique joys. Part of our job as providers, in any sense of the word, in allied health or in teaching, should be empowering people to make choices about how those challenges and joys shape who they are. And most research about the sibling experience actually shows that parents view it as a very negative thing for their typically developing children. However, when you ask the sibs, they view it as some of the most positive experiences of their lives. And some insane number, like I want to say it's 78, 80% of sibs end up going into helping professions because of it. And think about that. That huge sectors of these fields are full of people with personal experience with the exact things that their clients may be coming to them and needing assistance with or needing help with. And I think that that is really powerful if we're trying to bring all of these works in disability related fields to be about the people who are experiencing it directly, whether that is in a really deep allyship like siblinghood, or that is in the person themselves who's experiencing the disability.
That's a narrative we hear a lot in our Raising Orchid Kids classes, and in one-on-one coaching. You know, I feel like my other children, my other child is getting the short end of the stick. And you know, when I have my coach hat on, the thing I love to say is, what if this is exactly how their life is supposed to be? And in fact, this is exactly how their life is supposed to be. And how do we know that? Because it is like that. Right? And then you can get a little kind of in your head about it, starts to get a little circular maybe at times. But the alternative of thinking that my child is having is not having the childhood or the life that they should have had, that's hurting everybody. That's not helping anybody. It's not
Well, and the
helping.
other amazing thing too is that we keep talking about a world without barriers and a world with inclusion and a world where everything is accessible. And SIBs are living in that world. We're already here. I coach adaptive skiing at Ski Sundown in New Hartford, Connecticut through Summit Adaptive Sports. And I coach alongside another SIB, and it is a joy to coach together. And I remember one time after a lesson, we were riding up on the lift together, and he was just like, could you imagine living in normie world, like living in abled world? And I was like, I never want to go back. Like we are such a innovative and inclusive group. We're always thinking of ways to include people. And that's what I saw in my research too. So many sibs brought in photos of their sibling. And when you ask them about it and you ask them, well, what are other people going to see? One of the sibs just said, I didn't think it was should have meant anything. Like this picture was supposed to mean something. And another sib was like, they're going to see my sister right now. And I think that be here nowness of siblings is the epitome of them living the inclusion that we all hope to embody as a society. SIBs are already thinking about that. I am already doing that mental and emotional labor when I take my sister to go out to lunch. I am thinking, does this restaurant have accessible spaces? Does this restaurant have a a quieter area where she can sit and things won't get overwhelming. Is the FM system charged? Is this space something she wants to eat and allergies aren't an issue? And that's what a lot of the disability community has been asking able people to do already for so long, is to take on some of that emotional labor, is to call a restaurant ahead and make sure that it's accessible, make sure that it's quiet, make sure that they will honor allergy requests, all of those types of things. And siblings are living it.
Mhm.
So why not follow their lead?
I love this. I think that is an excellent place to pin this discussion. Why not follow their lead? Indeed. um, Zara, if people want to learn more about your work and about you, what do they do?
So if you'd like to learn more about my work, I post on Instagram at Hey Sib Sister, just like the song. And you can find me there on Instagram. It's a sunflower and the handle. And I post there about the things that we do in our Sib shop to support younger siblings. I also post about the things we do to help adult siblings and other ways that folks can advocate and get involved. I also like to sprinkle in some fun stories about me and my siblings as well.
I love it. You mentioned something else that was in Washington State, which I would love to link to as well. What was that?
Sure, it's the Sibling Support Project, and that is the guiding body for all SIB shops across the United States. I am just one of many. There are not a ton, but there are few and mighty, and we are linked together under the Sibling Support Project. And that is a organization out of Kinderling in Washington State that seeks to bind together supports for siblings of across the lifespan. So they have offerings for kids, for teens, for adults, and then they also oversee the certification process so that all SIB shop facilitators, whether they are a SIB or not, are prepared to deal with the unique challenges and joys of siblinghood.
At least one listener is going to go check it out and be like, I think I need a Sib shop.
I
Um,
love that. And
yeah,
if they have any questions, please chat me on Hey Sib Sister. I love to give advice and I love to help people to find their own SIB shops and fund their own SIB shops as well. The more, the merrier.
fantastic. Zara, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.